Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening if you're joining us from Asia Pacific. Today, we're going to, as part of our SusaCon 2023 sessions, we're going to look at Rancher Prime and double click into exactly what Rancher Prime is. Today's session is co-presented by myself, Utsav Singhani, and Jeff Hobbs. Um, a quick reminder on the safe harbor, you're going to see a lot of important information today that falls under our roadmap legal disclaimer. These items are subject to change. And All right, so let's meet the team. So as I mentioned before, my name is Utsav Sanghani. I lead product management for what we internally call as the enterprise container management business. This covers Rancher, NewVector, Harvester, and Longhorn. And today, supporting me and co-presenting with me is Jeff Hobbs, our VP of Engineering. He drives all engineering priorities within the ECM business. Hey, Jeff.
Welcome all.
Awesome. So with that, I'm going to kick it off here. So one of the first things I want to start off with is, reiterate our continued commitment to open source. Rancher Prime is a subscription offering on top of Rancher. It doesn't change, any of our go-to-market motions, or it doesn't really, pull the code base, bring the code base behind a closed source. Everything remains the same way. Rancher continues to, drive innovation through its open source adoption-led go-to-market model, and we will continue doing that. But as part of doing that, however, we want to introduce Rancher Prime and help drive incremental value to customers. Let's now dive into the specific pieces of what Rancher Prime is and how we bring it together. Let's start with the top left. What exactly is Rancher Prime? So Rancher Prime is an evolution of SUSE's commercial offering that included the actual software bits, which we would support, and then optional services. We're now elevating and augmenting that enterprise commercial offering to include additional value-added categories to provide you with a more holistic, overall subscription experience as part of the commercial offering. So it's built based on some modified binaries. We're not changing any of the functionality. All the functionality and the full feature set of the Rancher Prime portfolio remains available for everybody to use. But what we're actually adding, as I mentioned before, is a few more value added categories to give you maximum value from your subscription. And I'll dive into that in just a few more minutes here. It's available starting Rancher Manager 2.7 and above. So Rancher, just as a quick highlight, Rancher Manager 2.7 was released last December. So every new version of Rancher, 2.7 and above, does include support for Rancher Prime as a commercial customer. And what this really means for you as an existing customer is you automatically get upgraded to becoming a Rancher Prime customer, and all the incremental value added capabilities that we make available, you automatically inherit it. And then every new customer that we sign up also becomes a Rancher Prime subscription customer. So really it's a subscription change that is augmenting what we offer today with additional value added categories. Now let's do a quick revision on the thematic stack that makes up the Rancher Prime portfolio. So as you will see starting from the top, Rancher Prime, Rancher covers extensive developer capabilities to give developers access to giving them the ability to author cloud native applications and then be able to deploy those applications seamlessly into their corresponding clusters. We also have a variety of monitoring, logging, and AI ops capabilities, and Jeff is going to talk through that in just a few minutes here. On the cloud native security and policy side, we have NewVector and KubeWarden. NewVector is a full lifecycle container security solution supported by KubeWarden's policy management. Rancher obviously is the platform, the multi-cluster management platform that brings it all together. And then looking at components below the Rancher layer here, we're looking at our distributions, Rancher, RKE and RKE2. We're also looking at storage capabilities around Longhorn and cloud native infrastructure capabilities with Harvester. You'll see a lot of the other projects listed here, and Jeff's going to talk through some of the innovation work that's happening there and our path forward with those projects in just a few minutes here as well. But that's our thematic stack at a high level. Let's now take that perspective and that context and dive into how we're augmenting the overall subscription value of Rancher Prime, and what are these net new value categories that we're introducing. Let's start from the top left. The first one is trusted delivery with 24 by 7 times 365 SLA backed support. This is really the core essence of what Rancher Prime brings to customers, which is it allows you to download your Rancher binaries, your actual code base to be available from a trusted source, as opposed to the standard Docker Hub deployment, which can be subjected to malicious code injections happening, which is pretty typical for any public registry. So with the trusted registry delivery mechanism, we're ensuring the integrity of the bits. And so as you download and your teams use this downstream, you have the peace of mind and the confidence of not having to worry about potentially malicious attacks or any malpractice being applied as part of the binaries that you downloaded. So a key enabler of confidence in software security is with this trusted delivery mechanism that we have. Speaking of security, that's the next logical category on security and certifications. So one of the few things we're also offering as part of the Prime subscription is additional value-added capabilities around Rancher Prime that augments your overall experience. One example to note here is around how with Kubernetes, which is a CNCF CNCF project on policy management based on WebAssembly, and I'll touch on that in just a few minutes here. That capability can be nicely integrated into Rancher, and you essentially will get support for that. But above and beyond that, the customer still has to bear the overhead of drafting, authoring rules, maintaining them, upgrading them, and really that is a pretty intensive process. To remove that overhead and make it easier for customers to deploy policies for their specific clusters under management, we now have these built-in rule packs and policy packs that you can plug and play and augment your overall experience. So this is exclusively made available to Rancher Prime customers. I have some examples of policies I'm going to speak to in just a few more slides here, but specifically looking at CRD level policies that we can apply here to give you more holistic policy management capabilities with Rancher Prime. The second one is extensibility and ecosystem. So Rancher, since day one has been the pinnacle of driving open ecosystem adoption, and we lean on you, our customers, to make the choice of what works best for you. And so, with that in mind, we know that Rancher is your critical sort of central point of contact, and to be able to support your independent individual choices across the cloud native ecosystem, Rancher needs to be able to support extensibility there. And so as part of Rancher 2.7, which we released in December, we made available the UI extension, which is now massively being embraced and adopted by our partners, our resellers, the community, and our customers in wanting to integrate custom functionality into Rancher to get a streamlined, cohesive experience of their third-party product within the Rancher ecosystem. So the extensibility and the ecosystem part comes with Rancher Prime. One thing to note here is the plugins are going to be available to customers, but the support and the certification associated around those UI extension plugins will be made available to Prime customers. Going along the list, next one is the subscriber-only curated contextual, knowledge base. So as part of Rancher Prime, in our most recent Rancher Prime announcement that happened at KubeCon, we introduced a dedicated Prime knowledge base, and I'll walk you through exactly what that is and how that helps. This Prime knowledge base is a curated content store that has a lot of artifacts from the subject matter experts at SUSE. This covers white glove deployment guidelines, operating at scale guides. As an example, if you want to support really fat clusters that go above and beyond the upstream limit of 110 pods per node, how do you develop an architecture that can help you scale up to double that? And so we have specific guidelines to help you run that production scale with the same level of confidence. And so that's an example of an artifact that is coming from the SUSE experts that is made available to you as a Prime customer. And then lastly on that, just to finish up that row, we have extended support for extended lifecycle and LTSS. So for customers who are not able to keep pace with the number of the agility and the rapid level of changes with upstream Kubernetes. We're looking at offering extended LCSS for our distributions that will help you, stay in line and have a much more extended life cycle that bodes better with your upgrade process. So we're making that available also as a Rancher Prime feature set in the near future. Going to the second row at the bottom here, starting again from the left, built-in distributed storage, and I'm going to touch on that in just a few minutes here, but we want to make sure that we make available to you, a built-in distributed storage component that layers in nicely with your Rancher stack, if you do choose to use that. At the same time, with the extensibility, you have the option to choose another storage provider and integrate their CSI interface to sort of work with Rancher, and that completely is a choice that's available to you. Additionally, we are looking at providing built-in enterprise, observability and AI ops capabilities, as I mentioned before. And Jeff is going to touch on that in just a few minutes here. But this is really where we're looking at covering the full gamut of monitoring, tracing, logging, and even anomaly detection with our, built-in observability stack. I touched on the application development component previously, but there's going to be more updates as we roll in the application development Rancher desktop component into our Prime subscription and how we make that available to you so you can roll this out to your developers who are building cloud native apps. And then finally, built-in cloud native security, which is the key component that NewVector provides with its full lifecycle container security solution. And I'll touch on some of the highlights there as well. So really, Rancher Prime is extending the overall product value prop and covering these additional categories that can give you that elevated experience as part of your subscription. Let's now look at what the Rancher portfolio is and how the Rancher Prime portfolio is going to evolve. So if we start from the left again, the blue column on the left is really what Rancher community users get today. They get the full access to the full solution stack. It's 100% open source, no vendor lock-in, and we're sticking to our open source ethos there. So as part of that, we're making sure that all the community training, Rancher Academy, basic documentation, access to UI plugins, all of that is made available to everybody in the community. But for folks on the phone here listening to us, our customers, our partners, you're now starting to see this delineation between the commercial offering and the open source offering. And so if we now shift our lens to the green column, the second from the left, this is really where all the goodness that I talked about in the previous slide is actually coming to become a reality. And so in this roadmap slide, you'll see that 24/7 times 365 support is actually available today. And this is being backed by SLAs on upstream projects. Let me give you a couple of examples here. So one of the key things that differentiates Rancher is that ability to actually extend upstream projects. This includes Docker, Kubernetes, cluster API, or looking at cluster autoscaler, some of these initiatives that are happening upstream. So we're able to extend that functionality and bring in that confidence so you can actually run these capabilities and all the innovation happening in the community, with peace of mind without having to worry about a vendor lock-in or a stack lock-in. So as part of doing that, we sometimes run into issues where upstream changes may not happen or may accidentally introduce some friction. And so as an example, recently we had an upstream Docker change that was not getting prioritized, but that was causing a lot of CPU overutilization issues, which we as Rancher went ahead and made changes upstream to insulate, close to 70% of our install base against that potential disruption. So really one of the key things we're driving as part of the Prime subscription is to give you that additional level of confidence, that backing, and that peace of mind. So in the event of a change that happens upstream, your environment is not disrupted and you're protected, with any of these upstream changes. So that's a key thing that I wanted to call out here that we have available now with the Prime subscription. The second thing to call out here is the supportability review. The supportability review is another engagement as part of our Prime subscription that our support engineers are going to make available to you if they haven't already. This is where the supportability review assesses your environment, and I'll touch on more details there, but it assesses your environments, gives you recommendations on what the best practices are around, your cloud native, your embracing of cloud native technologies, your maturity index, and how you can grow that. And as part of doing that, it's going to help identify if you're straying away from best practices, and how you can come back on track to make sure that you're running this in the most performant way possible. So that's some of the good stuff that we have available today on the support side. It also has, if I switch lanes to the security component, we have the trusted registry download component available today as well. So every customer is able to download from a trusted registry today. The next piece here is around the Rancher Prime knowledge base and the engagement, the curated content repository I mentioned in the previous slide. So we have out of the box CRD policies that you can plug and play with your Qboard and Rancher implementation without having to bear the overhead of having to write these policies and maintain them. So these are available today as well. Operating at scale guides and white glove content pieces are all also available on the knowledge base, the Prime knowledge base, and I'll talk more about that in just a few minutes as well. If we now shift our lens to the orange column, which is what's coming in Rancher Prime in the next milestone. Essentially, we're doubling down on security. So FIPS 143 certification to align our cryptography mechanisms to be certified in line with the NIST requirements. So as all of you know, FIPS 142 is no longer accepted. FIPS 143 is the new standard. And so SUSE has been one of the key first movers who have actually submitted a proposal to be FIPS 143 certified for its underlying cryptography libraries. We expect the test to complete over the course of 2023 to help us get the certification in 2024. So that's one of the key milestones that we have coming up as part of the security initiative. We also have a lot of our internal processes aligning with the SALSA methodology. And what this really means is, SALSA came out with the 1.0 framework. And as part of the SALSA 1.0 framework, we do have level 2 that's being targeted for later this year. And then also making an SBOM available for certain components of the stack for customers who want to track the integrity and the security posture for each of the components being packaged up by the Rancher ecosystem. I touched on LTSS in my previous slide, so focusing on building out LTSS for our underlying RKE2 distribution, which is an extension of upstream K3S. So being able to offer that for a lot of our telco customers or customers wanting to run Kubernetes on the edge. Lastly, on the architecture side, we're also extending support for ARM64, as you heard from some of the keynotes. We have a lot of work that we're doing jointly with ARM and making sure that our entire stack is available and supported as first-class citizens on ARM64. Lastly, training and services. This is again a continued module that continues to evolve. Being able to offer built-in training above and beyond Rancher Academy, analogous to what you would typically see with a cloud-native Kubernetes administrator portal. So being able to offer some credits there and train your teams to build their underlying maturity of Kubernetes and cloud-native technologies. Looking at CY 2024, just in the interest of time, I'm gonna accelerate through this, but you will see built-in virtualization with our Harvester stack on how we're essentially making Kubernetes available on-prem, and being able to allow you to modernize without forcing you to move away from your bare metal implementations. So there's going to be a lot of big announcements there that I'm going to talk through, and then on the AI front, I wouldn't steal Jeff's thunder. He's going to cover this in more detail, but we have a ton of work, and Rancher is getting serious about AI and what that means, including being able to offer a variety of cloud-based SaaS services to augment the overall value proposition. So hang in there. You're gonna hear from Jeff in just a few more minutes on exactly what that entails. And as part of, as you move from left to right, you'll see that we're at the bottom of those columns. You're seeing these new UI extensions that are getting built out. And the UI extensions component that I talked about previously is not just focusing on the Rancher Prime or the Rancher ecosystem. It's expanding out to cover, all of you partners, customers, the community who can actually pick up the framework very easily, build out an implementation, and get the same simplified UI experience that you are familiar and love on the Rancher side, and have that be available as part of the integration with your product. So that's really how we're also starting to build out the ecosystem on our side. And as we engage with partners, and the community, we will see that category also grow further. Let's now double click on the supportability review that I touched on previously, which is available right now. So supportability review, the best analogous comparison here is with, think of your auto service advisor. You're taking your car to your shop and you want to do a quick assessment on what needs to be changed. Do you need new brake pads? Do you need new wiper blades? Essentially, it's helping you assess where potential problem areas exist, and then how you can, based on the guidelines of the service advisor, undertake a car service to essentially remedy that problem. And so, taking that same example out, we're essentially looking at your cloud native implementation, and as your pit crew, looking at understanding if there are any potential cluster configuration issues. Are we giving? Are we Are we providing more resources to one cluster over the other? Are we deviating from some standard best practices? We're also looking at corrective actions where maybe some resources are being allocated to certain clusters in a non-prudent fashion, and that's resulting in increased your increased costs from a hosting and deployment standpoint. So how do we identify some of these things proactively and remedy them so you get maximum value for your subscription? Really steering the support conversation from being just supporting your deployment and issues that come in to becoming more proactive and consultative along the way. And this is completely built into your existing subscription. You don't have to pay anything extra, and it's available to you as of April 2023. It also helps you with incurred architectures if there are certain architectures or deviations that we find, so we can then pull in the right material, the right artifacts, the right subject matter experts to help you course correct and move forward with a plan for action. So that's the supportability review. I touched on the knowledge base here, but just to reiterate, it's a curated repository of a lot of strategic articles that our engineering team has written, our center of excellence team has written, our sales engineers, our product managers, so my team extends, etc. So we're all essentially curating this vast pool of intelligence and subject matter expertise and pumping that into the knowledge base so that you, as the customer, get access to a wealth of information that you can then contextually apply to your deployment. I gave a few examples of this, and we'll continue to build this out as we move forward. But the knowledge base is now live. If you don't have access to it, I suggest you reach out to a CSM or file a support request, and we can help provision that if you don't have access to it already. But this is a great resource for you to make sure that you get the maximum bang for your buck from the subscription. And these are just some screenshots to help you understand how we're making this available, including providing more tailored guidance around how you use the UI extension, how you actually onboard there, how do you get it set up. So really making this as self-serviceable as possible and helping you guide you along the way to get to a happy path successfully. Next one is the UI extension for Qboard. And as I mentioned before, we introduced the UI extension framework in December, and then we slowly started building out additional ancillary capabilities on top of Rancher and provide that seamless experience of Rancher with the UI extension. So as of April 2023, we now also have the UI extension for Qboard, which integrates the power of OPA-based Qboard policy management engine natively into Rancher, and then you're able to leverage, as part of your Prime subscription, the plug and play policy packs to essentially deploy that and automate that entire process. One of the things that we've heard from a couple of customers as being of value is recently, as part of the change from 124 to 125, instituted a change from PSPs being deprecated in favor of PSAs. This is really where Qboard and some of the policies needed a major overhaul for customers who are self-managing it. And so here, as part of the value of Prime, when things like this happen, we're able to provide you with PSA counterparts to your formerly PSP policies and make that available to you, so you don't have to worry about the overhead of maintaining that and running the risk of potentially policies and compliance checks breaking. So this is some of the core value prop that we're now driving with the UI extension, support for which is available as part of your Prime subscription. One of the things that I also want to call out is if you as a customer do want to author your own policies, that flexibility still remains. The WebAssembly-based implementation makes it super easy for customers to author their own Qboard policies. So you have that capability built in as well. Next piece covers UI extension for Elemental. So for people who don't know what Elemental is our bare metal provisioning solution. And so with the UI extension, we're now able to integrate this otherwise independent capability into the Rancher stack and give you fully supported bare metal provisioning capabilities. It leverages the native UI experience, so there's no divergence from a UI experience and a customer experience standpoint. And this will ensure that it's covered for the data center use cases, and Elemental separately is also being packaged up as part of our Edge solution, and you'll hear about that in the Edge sessions. But you have both of these use cases nicely supported with Elemental. The next piece here is the trusted registry download capability and what that really means. So, I know I touched on this a little bit initially, but one of the key things to remember here is with any public registry, right? There's always likelihood of potential tampering or malicious code injection happening. We've seen this happen multiple times on the Docker registry. Back in the day, prior to containers, we would see this with open source packages, where potentially malicious code would be injected into open source packages that were being downloaded from, let's say, Maven Central or from the npm repository, etc. So some of the public registries offer a lot of flexibility, but they do also come with a lot of risk, both from a security side as well as from a potential compliance standpoint. And so one of the key things and one of the key value props that we're driving is giving you, the customer, a trusted registry download capability that allows you to extend and download the Rancher binaries with peace of mind, because Rancher is actually hosting it, managing the download mechanism, and notarizing those images so the integrity of the bits can be maintained along the way. This is one of the key enablers for Rancher Prime, and as a paying customer, you have access to this right now. It's a simple Helm based implementation. So when you're planning your next upgrade or come renewal time, I highly encourage you to switch over from Docker Hub to the trusted registry as a paying customer. Let's now look at cloud native storage and what we have coming up here. So Longhorn, as some of you know, is a completely 100% open source project that Rancher has been the leading author on. We've donated this to the CNCF, and it's a high available software design persistent block storage solution. And as part of the interoperability with Rancher Prime, we're making Longhorn available as part of the Rancher Prime ecosystem through a native UI extension. So it allows you to get the benefits of the Longhorn solution in the context of your Rancher ecosystem and the Rancher experience. So a lot of that is being available, and it's coming soon in the next iteration of Rancher Prime. Moving from Longhorn to the next component, this is Harvester, and with Harvester, we're also bringing in a lot of key value additions that I think will be important for a lot of our customers. So with Rancher Prime Cloud Native Infrastructure, formerly Harvester, what we're trying to do is we're essentially helping customers modernize their underlying applications without forcing them to move away from their bare metal deployments. So here you can have container applications and VM applications coexist on an on-prem host. This can be bare metal, this can be through VMs, and you're able to have one infrastructure for any application that you're wanting to run. And Harvester, in that appliance setup, is able to nicely support that for you. So a lot of value in how we're packaging this together with Rancher Prime, and that's planned for the next iteration of the ecosystem subscription. And then finally, talking through NewVector and the availability of full lifecycle container security. NewVector, as some of you know, offers end-to-end DevOps integrated capabilities from the build stage all the way to production. So if I go from left to right, as a full scale container security solution, it has built-in post-build scanning capability, so you can create, as part of your CI jobs, you're able to essentially create post-build, CI jobs in your Jenkins plugin, in your GitLab plugin, and then be able to, gatekeep any potential, violations that may have been identified during scanning. If there's a critical vulnerability or a high vulnerability, we're able to gatekeep the build process and prevent propagation of that built binary downstream into the various stages of your pipeline. So there's build level scanning that's integrated. There's registry level scanning that is also integrated. So customers who have internal registries that need to be scanned for compliance and security, security checks prior to developers using those images, are able to very seamlessly integrate the full lifecycle NeuVector container security scanning into their registries. Along the way, as your code is built in your DevOps pipeline, NeuVector allows you to get access to CIS benchmarks and support you with custom audits. It also helps with compliance reports around PCI DSS, GDPR, the NIST, even looking at HIPAA from a healthcare standpoint. So you have a lot of these compliance reports that can be supported, out of the box. And then runtime security scanning for your images that are running right now as containers, both on the host or on the platform. We're able to offer that out of the box. And this runtime protection is really, really backed by, our policy, our methodology of baking in security as code. So we've in a traditional generative fashion, we've built in security policies as code, so you can codify that and you can use that to deploy policies. NeuVector works nicely with Kubernetes, and it's able to implement a lot of the complementary synergies from the two solutions to then be able to drive end-to-end security automation, admission controls, give you additional container level firewall support, and then full workload protection across file and process, and then notifying you of any downstream impact through Jira, through various bug tracking systems, so you get notified and can remediate those issues proactively with your security forensics teams. So that's NeuVector in a nutshell as well. I'll finally look at some of the open interoperable, components that I talked about and the full SLA that we're offering here. So one of the key things is with the Rancher Prime, different value categories with Rancher Prime, we're offering a full SLA, but also in the same way, extending our Rancher Prime ecosystem with the UI extensions to all of our ready partners. So we integrate with a lot of these partners today, and we're furthering and deepening our integrations with them so we can deliver a more cohesive and a more streamlined experience for you within Rancher, as your cloud native ecosystem platform of choice. And then finally, with that, I will turn it over to Jeff, and Jeff Hobbs will take you through some of the cutting edge innovation we're working on today. Jeff?
Thanks, Utsav, for a good review of what we have in Rancher Prime now. I want to talk a little bit about what's coming next, right? Because we have quite a talented team, great bench strength in the Kubernetes and cloud native space. And what you see today is not everything that we do. So let's talk a little bit about that innovation. So first, in our continued commitment around open source, we do like to innovate. Utsav did mention a few of the projects. Part of our CNCF contributions, well, there's K3S, the wildly popular single file binary Kubernetes distribution that's great for edge use cases or small, Raspberry Pi type use cases. And it's the certified lightweight Kubernetes that has become the de facto choice for many in the cloud native space. In addition, there's Longhorn that was mentioned before as our storage solution, is also there as one of the CNCF contributions. With Longhorn, there's also the S3 Gateway project, which is our attempts to bring, not attempt, it's a success, in bringing the S3 API into a very easy to use combination with Longhorn so that you can provide any S3 API endpoint very easily to your cloud native applications. And Kubernetes was already mentioned, but it's Kubernetes admission control. Thing Utsav didn't mention is it's entirely done using WebAssembly. So you can write your policies in not some esoteric, weird language like Rego, but in any language that happens to compile to WebAssembly, which does include Rego, but includes, of course, many other languages. And that's already in the CNCF sandbox as well. So other areas that we're throwing some efforts behind, Rancher Desktop. So this is not running the Rancher Manager that you're all accustomed to on the desktop. This is rather Rancher providing the Kubernetes experience on your desktop. So you get K3S, and you can get any version you want to choose of K3S and run it in a you know, simplified VM offering. You got some UI options around controlling that, and there are some extra features that are coming in there, along with its own extension mechanism. And this is great because it allows you to try. It's a great way for you at the developer desktop level. You don't have to provision anything out in the cloud or in your data center space. You can run and test things locally and also move between different versions of Kubernetes. So, hey, I'm going to run my workload on 124. Well, let me just upgrade underneath to 125, see what happens to my workload. And again, all on the desktop. Another one's Epinio. This is basically a PaaS layer on top of Kubernetes. From code to URL in one step, it allows your developers not to know anything about kube control and just be able to think about their code and how it should run in the system with URL management and connection to data services and such. Uh, um, Next to that, we have Harvester is one of our products, but is something that we continue to innovate in around the hyperconverged infrastructure space, also providing you a bare metal Kubernetes experience. And by the way, all of the things that I am talking about, you can get much more in depth through other sessions that are being provided in SUSECON or through SUSECON Digital if you want to deep dive into any of these projects. Opni is another one in the observability space where you have OpenSearch, OpenTelemetry, and other projects brought together in a very simplified, multi-cluster, multi-user managed sense. So it's how we view our next generation of logging, monitoring, and metrics that will be provided for you in the Rancher space. But you can already play with this today. Another one that Utsad had mentioned before is Elemental, which is really, it's an entire software stack that enables that centralized full stack OS management. And it becomes a bare metal story and an edge story for us within the Rancher space. But it is really much richer than that if you want to get into the project behind it. And again, there's other talks that will be covering that in depth. On and underpinning all of this, not to forget, is the SLE BCI, the SUSE Linux Enterprise base container image, which provides flexible, tailored images, which they come in nano, micro, small, in various different levels, with or without the zipper binaries and other aspects, so that you can know that you're running everything on a certified, secure base platform that you're building your cloud native applications, and which we strive to do ourselves as well. And of course, all this, we have the security solution as well in NuVector, which is product, but of course is something that came into the SUSE fold about 18 months ago, which we open sourced. So you can again get all that innovation at the open source level as well. So moving on from here, let me talk a little bit about cloud delivered functionality. So not everything happens on your desktop. Some of these things you want to run in the cloud, or we want to run in the cloud because we want to offer you something that you don't want the complexity of at your desktop level. So first and foremost, getting availability in the marketplaces. Some of that is available now, but we will be bringing this with pay-as-you-go functionality to all of the cloud marketplaces in the near future. We are as well improving our curation around this, so there's better ways in which to integrate with the cloud services that you'll find in Amazon, Azure, or Google Cloud Sense. And again, there's some other talks along at SUSECON that will show you a little bit about where we're going there. There's also going to be some cloud-hosted features around observability, governance, and ecosystem, all of which we hope will provide a much more engaging experience when you're using Rancher. And one of those, which if we jump to the next slide, which I'll talk about, is in the AI space. So AI is obviously popular, a buzzword in the ecosystem, with something that we have been working on internally. You will find some of those features in for example, Opni, which, as I said, is our next gen observability solution, which does bring AI ops. So helps you with root cause detection. Basically, it bubbles through the millions of log lines that you have and reduces it to hundreds or just a few thousand in which are anomalous. So the anomaly detection capabilities are the key part in the AI modeling within AI ops. But in addition, we also have coming out at the same time, this is SusaCon, we're announcing our chatbot, which will be available to our Rancher customers via the Slack sessions. Is you can chat with a Rancher support chatbot that can really assist you in all of the basic questions. You know, it's been trained on to know everything about Rancher that we have in our docs in our knowledge base and can give you some answers. So you can kind of see where other areas where we're playing. But that's not all. You know, we are looking at other areas in observability to help you right through, not just to root cause, to kind of help you with root cause analysis, but to get down to that root cause detection and further into remediation. We're looking at using it in insights in the knowledge base, which will give you better curated content and quick starts. Also, that might give you some more personalized insights about how you are using your systems in context with the much larger, you know, the tens of thousands of the Rancher user base that is out there. In addition, extending into our supportability reviews and our policy and security hubs. So I just wanted to, you know, touch on those as a teaser for the many things that is to come in the cloud native and Rancher space. And with that, I thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks everybody for joining and attending this session. Enjoy the rest of the SusaCon Digital show, and we'll talk soon. Take care. Cheers. Thanks everybody.